In 1566, a baby was born to unite two kingdoms. This child was called Sigismund, son of the Polish princess Catherine Jagellonica and John III of Sweden. Young Sigismund was raised by his father to link the two kingdoms his parents descended from. Later, when he was crowned, Poland and Sweden were indeed united under one ruler for a moment in time. But peace was not to last. The attempt of uniting the two states led Sweden and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth to fight a series of wars for more than 30 years. This video explains how modern historiography recounts Sigismund's failed attempt to secure power over both the Kingdom of Sweden and Poland. The Polish king Stefan Batory died in 1586, after long years of a well-hidden sickness. 1 year after the king's death, Sigismund Vasa, now 20 years of age, was elected as King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania. At the time, the Kingdom of Poland was in a personal union with the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, known as the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Together, they formed one of the great powers of Europe. To put a son of a Polish princess and a Swedish duke on the throne of the Commonwealth was an attempt to enhance and strengthen the Polish-Swedish alliance, which had initially been formed to confront another powerful enemy further to the east, Ivan the Terrible of Russia. This alliance was strongly endorsed by the Pope too, who hoped to win back the mostly Lutheran Swedes for Catholicism. John lived for the vision of a political union between the two empires. So much so that he even raised Sigismund as a Catholic in anticipation that he might one day rise to the throne of mostly Catholic Poland. The nobles of Sweden supported this idea because they liked the idea of a king absent from their land, and because they hoped their contested position in Livonia would be strengthened. In Poland, Sigismund had significant backings in the ranks of the nobility, prime amongst them Stefan Batory's widow and the Chancellor Zamoyski. They hoped for territorial gains in Livonia and Swedish naval support against Muscovy and Denmark. According to Stuart Oakley, a major figure in the research of Scandinavian history, electing Sigismund promised reconciliation of the factions at home, as well as peace and stability in the Baltic region. However, this vision of a Polish-Swedish union misfired badly. Sweden and Poland reached an agreement, but it was full of misunderstandings, especially about the fate of Estonia, in which both parties had an interest. Before Sigismund left Sweden, he signed the Statutes of Kalmar, in which he guaranteed Swedish independence and, moreover, the Swedish possession of Estonia. In Krakow, however, as part of his election, he agreed to the so-called Pacta Conventa, which obliged him to regain Estonia for Poland. Neither document envisaged a full union. After some back and forth, it was finally agreed to postpone the question of Estonia until Sigismund would ascend the Swedish throne in 1592. Besides the confusion regarding Estonia, there was another looming problem. Sigismund's Catholicism was helping him in Poland, but was clearly of no help in Sweden. On the contrary, the suspicious Swedish nobilities rallied under the lead of Sigismund's unscrupulous Protestant uncle, Charles, Duke of Södermanland, who had been installed as new regent without the king's consent, while Sigismund was attending to his business in Poland. Throughout the next decade, the support of clergy and peasantry for Charles increased at Sigismund's cost, and in 1597 war erupted. Charles quickly seized a number of castles in southern Sweden, whereby he gained control over much of the kingdom. By 1598, Sigismund's authority was so far undermined that he had no other choice but to reassert it by force. In February of 1598, the King of Poland and Sweden assembled an army of about 5,000 men and marched them north to Danzig. From there, he set sail for Sweden on ships which had been either captured or freshly bought. He had to do this because the Swedish Navy refused to ferry a foreign army to their homeland. Meanwhile, Sigismund's Finnish supporters invaded Uppland. There, however, they met Charles's allies, and they were driven back with the help of local farmers in what is peculiarly called the Sausage Campaign. At the end of May, Sigismund's army finally landed at Avaskar. He first turned to the city of Kalmar, which capitulated on the 1st of August. This gave the campaign a boost, and many hitherto undecided Swedes joined him. From Kalmar, he marched to Stockholm, which he conquered almost without resistance. Now the cavalry of Uppland joined him, and new forces from Finland and Estonia were being mobilized to his support. At this point, envoys from Brandenburg, Prussia, and Mecklenburg still tried to mediate and save the crumbling peace. However, their efforts were in vain, and Sigismund moved his army towards Stegeborg castle. But the fleet was havocked by a storm, and a good part of the men on board perished. This put Sigismund in a vulnerable position. But that was not all. When he finally landed at Stegeborg, Charles's army was just nearby at Linköping and blocked the way of Sigismund's reinforcements. When the Swedes advanced to Mem on the 28th of August, Sigismund was trapped. Meanwhile, Sigismund could still count on his forces elsewhere. He ordered one of his commanders to attack the back of the Swedes from the west and another to draw up in front of them. In the morning of the 8th of September, the two armies clashed at the Battle of Stegeborg. Charles's first assault was easily stopped by Sigismund's well-trained mercenaries. Then a Polish cavalry charge broke the Swedish formation. After only a few hours, the battle was over. Sigismund's victory was decisive, but he did not want to slaughter anyone unnecessarily. He just wanted the Swedish throne. Therefore, he let Charles and his men go, who retreated to their camp at Mem. Soon after, a new round of negotiations was opened. The result was a ceasefire of 2 days, during which Sigismund summoned support from Poland. But the Swedish navy, anchoring near Stegeborg, blocked the way for any reinforcements coming from Poland, and even brought fresh troops for Charles. Sigismund rightfully felt threatened by the sea blockade and interpreted it as a sign of aggression. Therefore, he marched his army to Linköping on the 20th of September. Charles's army was following right behind him. 5 days later, the armies clashed again at the Battle of Stangebro. When Charles's troops, about 9,000 men, approached the town of Linköping from the east, Sigismund's army of 7,000 charged out of the city and met them near 2 old bridges over the river Stangan. Thick fog limited the sight and covered the movements of the two armies. Charles attacked first. His troops quickly pushed back Sigismund's men at one bridge, and then advanced to the other bridge. There, Sigismund's men had crossed the river and already had taken a strong defensive position on the eastern shore. As a reaction to this, the Duke retired uphill, where the fight continued. However, a large share of the Swedes fighting in Sigismund's army refused to continue fighting against their countrymen and the mercenaries. Even though they gave a good account of themselves, they couldn't withstand Charles's superior numbers. Sigismund had to give in and ask for a truce. Charles made good use of his advantage and insisted on very harsh terms. Sigismund had to send his army home, while he himself would stay in Sweden until the question of his kingship was decided by a parliament session. Although he still enjoyed significant support, late that year he sealed his own fate when he ignored these terms by fleeing to Poland. For all of 1599, Charles and his allies reclaimed cities still under Sigismund's control. They captured one stronghold after another, until by September all of Sigismund's followers had gone, had been detained, or had been executed. Sigismund was officially deposed from the Swedish throne by the Riksdag on the 24th of July 1599. The Riksdag was a diet made up of all 4 socialist states, which held the highest authority in Sweden besides the king. Sigismund was given the choice to either bring up his son, Ladislav of Poland, as a Protestant and send him to Sweden as a successor, or to leave it to the estates to look for a new king. Sigismund didn't answer, and in February of 1600, the members of the Riksdag elected Duke Charles, King Charles IX of Sweden. The Riksdag's election of Charles profoundly shocked Sigismund. For the rest of his long reign, he would try to recover his birthright to the Swedish throne. Don't forget to check out Call of War, so you don't miss out on the exclusive gift of 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. The offer is only available for 30 days. Click the link in the description or in the pinned comment to get started right now.